Welcome to Fostering Blooms, the podcast where we dig deep into gardening and all the ways it can enrich your home and life.
Together, we'll explore every aspect of gardening the organic way, keeping it simple, accessible, and fun.
Whether you're a seasoned gardener or just getting your hands in the dirt, we're here to share the tips and insights you need to grow something truly special. I'm Shanna Foster Boleen.
And I'm Caitlin Blum, and we're two friends on a mission to cultivate beauty, creativity, and connection through everything we grow.
This is Fostering Blooms.
I want to suck your blood. Do you have garlic to keep me away?
I do.
We have a lot of garlic.
We do. And a lot of mom jokes, apparently.
Yeah, that was kind of a mommy joke,
That's
wasn't
okay. That's
Garlic is everything.
I love garlic.
Garlic is life.
Garlic is life.
There's very few dishes that garlic doesn't go into.
I think when we did our top 5 plants earlier this year, like that you couldn't live without, I feel like garlic was on my list. Was it? I feel like it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love garlic so much.
And now with an abundance of our own garlic,
Yeah,
it's awesome.
it really is. I have been growing it for a while now, and I'm looking every year at how I can get it to store better because I just love the potential. So we're going to get into garlic today and talk a little bit about varieties, how to harvest it, and then when to plant it. Let's start with the varieties.
Okay.
Okay.
I also, before we start, I just want to say garlics, shallots, and scapes. Oh my.
Yeah. Oh my.
Oh my.
Oh my.
So this year we did hardneck garlic.
Yes. Which, to be honest, is what I've mainly grown, always.
I don't know why, but the softneck garlic, it kind of intimidates me. I don't know why. I feel like I've tried to do it in the past and it's kind of deteriorated on me.
Interesting.
Yeah. And maybe I just didn't have it in a good area, got too much water. I was just kind of not as diligent on my care for it. So that probably played a big part in it.
Yeah. So it's funny because my reaction to softneck has always been, softneck is essentially what you're buying in the grocery store, and it always seems a little substandard in terms of flavor.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the hardnecks just have a lot more vibrancy to them, and that's why I've chosen the hardneck varieties.
Yeah.
I prefer them, but I was thinking about buying some softneck stock to grow one variety of softneck this year because they do have really good heat resistance. So if you're a southern gardener, probably even more southern like Georgia and Florida, where you don't have as much cooling time, softneck is really the best variety for you. I think I'm going to give over at least one variety, maybe 2, to some softneck this year.
Okay, I'll join you.
Yeah, okay. And there are a few differences with hardneck. Hardneck tends to be a little bigger.
Which I like. I mean, I want a big ass garlic bulb.
Me too.
And when I cook too, I always pick the bigger cloves.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just about to plunge right into softnecks.
Go, yeah, go.
Softnecks, although they are smaller cloves, they store longer.
Yeah.
But I also think at the rate at which we're using garlic, like, do we need those massive storing capabilities?
I don't know. They store like 6 to 9 months, but I will tell you that when I harvest, which is now, this time of year, June, July, 6 months is just till the end of the year. I have tried to make mine last well into the spring. And one thing that I am interested in is the possibility when I get my pressure canner, of potentially canning, if I have a big enough harvest, canning some of my garlic in a pressure canner so that I have my own garlic that I can use. I mean, literally just saying that right now because I haven't researched the capability of that.
We're going to try it. I wonder even too if we canned them and then stored them in the fridge. I'd even go that far.
Yeah, well, I'll do whatever because I really
to preserve them and do a few cans and have that for January, February.
Yeah. That's kind of why I'm a little intrigued with the softneck, is because I feel like I can use up my hardneck through the back half of the year. And I really think most of the hardneck has always lasted me through at least the end of January. a lot of times I run out of it because I just use it up, you know?
Yeah.
And then having some soft neck to take you through to like maybe March would be pretty awesome. And then if you can it, maybe you have the cans to use. There's some planning involved depending on what you grow. The point is, I think garlic is an easy thing for anyone to grow. In fact, when people say, I've never grown anything, I say start with garlic because it really is so simple. We're going to talk about how to grow it when you plant it. But since we're at the middle of the year, we're going to start with how to harvest it, because if you have grown it, then you would be harvesting it. So it sounds a little backwards, but you'll have to listen to the end to find out how to plant it.
If you want to find out what to
do.
And what's interesting is we planted our garlic end of October, beginning of November.
Correct.
I just pulled all of mine out in mid-June, and consensus say you should wait until 4 or 5 leaves start to turn brown at the base of the garlic before you harvest.
Yeah.
I saw Charles Downing. He does it when there's like 2 brown leaves at the bottom and he pulls them out.
Yeah.
It was very interesting.
I think it's interesting too. So with hardneck garlic, here's a point of difference. It gets the scape, which is curly, and Caitlin is really into scapes, and she was like, girl, if you're not cooking with those, you're missing out. So that's a whole other thing. But once you see the scapes curling, you should cut them. It puts more energy back into the bulb. Or if you don't cut it, it'll point straight up to the sky, and that's kind of another indication that it's close to being ready to harvest. So I usually do cut the scapes, and I think when they start to flop a little bit and the bottom 2 or 3 leaves, that's good enough for me.
Agreed.
I feel like sometimes if you leave them in too long, you're not necessarily reaping extra benefit, although you wouldn't want to pull them too soon when everything's really green and all of that.
I think there's a broad window for you to pull them out. I was also afraid of them kind of rotting because we've been getting a lot of rain, and you're not supposed to water them for like 2 weeks before you harvest them. I guess I could have covered them from the rain, but that's insane. So I actually pulled them out right after it rained because it was easier to get them out of the soil. And I did find that like maybe 2 had kind of their bases had rotted a little bit. And so I'm just using those now. Yeah. And they won't go into storage. So
yeah, absolutely.
Like, I can use this right now. Don't worry.
For sure. Well, with harvesting, which is the first thing that we're really kind of talking about, we've talked about the leaves, we talked about the scapes. One of the other things is when you go to take them out, I've seen videos where everybody's like, oh, I love that crunchy pulling root sound. Well, one thing I would warn you to be careful of is that you don't want to just grab it and start yanking. You really want to get some kind of implement, whether it's like a hand fork or it could be a trowel if you don't have a hand fork, underneath it so that you're kind of loosening those roots up a little bit first and then gently pulling. You'll still hear that kind of like crunchy sound, which is fine because there's a lot of roots coming out of that soil, but you do want to be careful that you're not just yanking it because you can really damage it that way.
Yeah, I did that to a few because I was out there. It was
you're like, oh, I'm just going to...
I was like, oh my God, these need to come out right now. So I'm sitting there like going like this. I'm like, this is so stupid. So I got one of my really shitty little decorative trowels.
Oh my God.
Because that's all I had. All my stuff was in the basement and or in the garage, which is not that far of a walk. So it was just kind of really dumb. And I was just like, and I got it loosened and pulled them out. So just...
Yeah.
I'm so tough and aggressive on stuff.
That's
I really
funny.
need to ease back, but... These need to come out right now.
Right. Not 2 minutes from now.
No,
right
I can't go get anything to get these out. My bare hands and
bare
this
hands.
shitty ass trowel are going to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's one way to do it.
Don't
Maybe
do it like
not
that.
the ideal way to do it. But once you take them out, you basically are going to take them out by variety. And I grab their marker with them. I use like a wood marker to mark the variety.
Great job.
Thank you. And I take them over to the shady area that I have and I lay them out like next to each other with their marker. And then I go back to the next variety and pull those out and then lay them out.
You're so good.
I'm so good. But the thing about it is you don't want to have them in the sun because it can actually cook them. It can dehydrate them. So you don't want to dry them directly in the sun when even when you're just pulling out the other varieties if you're going back and forth. And I did read something, and I forgot about it this year and didn't do it, but I did it last year. And I will say my things didn't store as long, so I either did it wrong or it was just a fluke. But when an hour has passed, you can take the lower leaf and you just pull down the lower leaf and it strips out that outer cover of like the dirty part of the clove. Just that one thing. It's just because each leaf is a wrapper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it just does that one. Then you just cut the neck long. So you maybe leave the neck like 8 inches long and cut off the top part of the leaves. Other people say you can leave the whole leaf. I've done it both ways.
Wow.
It's a little neater to just cut off the top part of the leaves and let them cure. So this is just right after harvest. As you're harvesting, you wait an hour, you strip them, and then that's the point where you also would cut off the leafy part about 8 inches above the bulb. And then you can tie them together in a bundle. I usually tie them with just regular string that I use in the garden to tie things up with, and then put their label with them.
Wow. You
So,
really are good.
Yeah. Well, I really am weird about it because I'm bad about labeling some things, although I'm trying to get better. But I do really want to know which garlic variety
Story's
it
best.
is. Well, yes. And also what variety I like. Because, you know, I might say I've grown this for 3 years and it's okay, but I want to try something else. Or I might say this is indispensable and I want to know which one it is. So that's kind of the harvesting thing. The biggest thing is that we don't want to wash them.
We don't want to spray them off with the hose.
Nope, we don't want to do that.
So we'll see how that goes for me, because I did. I was like, God, these are so dirty. I love spraying shit off. I am a water hog. It's so cool how different we are and how we go about things.
I know.
The approaches are just so different, and I love it.
I know.
You know, it's wild because sometimes things work out wildly and sometimes they don't.
I
or
know.
whatever.
It's
and
funny.
it's so I'm not always a direction follower. Sometimes I'm like, I don't care, I'm doing this, and things work out okay. Surprisingly.
Well, I think that's a good mix because, like, I have been accused of being like, you're such a rule follower. And I'm like, oh, maybe not as much as you think. But I, like, kind of do more of that. And then you're more experimental. And I want to be more experimental. And you're probably like, I should have followed that rule a little bit more.
Yeah,
so it's a good balance.
We'll see what happens. So I did spray off about half my garlic. And traditionally, the rules say that you should be curing your garlic in a cool, dry space in the dark.
Yes.
I have mine hanging on my porch chair on my front porch.
That's covered.
It's covered, so they're going to be dry. They are not in direct sun.
Correct.
And I've seen this done in other places too.
I think it's going to be okay. I'm doing it in my basement, which is completely dark and it is dry, but there is some humidity down there. We have a dehumidifier. It's a big basement, so there's plenty of airflow. One of the most important things with curing is airflow. So both of us have plenty of space for airflow. So when you're curing it, remember I said I put it in a bundle, but I'm making sure that they're not clumped together. They're not in a bag. They're like hanging. You can't even do them on drying racks. If you don't have drying racks, I think you could even lay them out on a table, just maybe flip them over after the first week. But the airflow is really important. So I think on their front porch, it's going to have great airflow. And as long as it's not in direct sunlight and as long as it's not like 90 degrees, I think it's when it gets super, super hot or
outside.
really, really high humidity. A lot of these places where they may be drying them outside, I don't know what their temperatures are compared to ours. So I think it will be interesting to see. And I have actually cured them in a utility closet before in our last house because we didn't have a lot of space. They don't smell like garlic when they're curing, so it didn't smell like garlic in the closet. So the next thing, cure for 2 to 3 weeks, and that curing basically just helps protect them and lets them solidify, so to speak, for the winter.
And gets that nice papery dry outside that helps preserve them. And what's interesting too is at our house, the sun sets in the back. So the back of the house gets really hot.
Right.
I'm hoping they'll be okay on the front porch. We'll see. I'm going to do my onions the same way whenever I pull those out.
And you could always put stuff in your garage too. That's a good space for you down there if you wanted to. So after the curing is done with soft necks, you can leave your leaves on. Like I said, hard necks, I'm kind of cutting them at about 8 inches or so. But with soft necks, you could leave your leaves on all the way through the curing process and then you can braid them. When you go into the Italian restaurants and you see the braided garlic, it's so pretty. Theoretically, I suppose you could braid hardneck. I just think people don't typically do that because it's not as pliable.
I did. So did a braided one too.
Okay. So you're supposed to wait till after curing.
I was like, I can't wait. I'm braiding this thing now.
That's
and so the first ones I pulled, and I did. I braided them, and they're hanging in my pantry.
That's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I do care, but I'm like, whatever.
I'm just
this is why I don't bake.
Oh.
Because I don't follow.
This is why I bake.
I know.
I bake. It is interesting. For me, what happened this year is, and the reason I'm wondering how it's going to work is because I'm really concerned about the curing process, because my garlic harvest was a little bit meh. And that's disappointing because I dedicated even more space to it. I had like every other row was kind of a failure. Like I had some really big ones and some really that just didn't even bulk up. I don't know if it didn't cure right. There's a couple things that could go wrong. So it could be the bulb that I chose. And again, remember, we're curing these in usually July. So it's not like they were in storage for a really long time, but they're still in storage from like July until the end of October. Yeah. So it could have been that the bulb was too wet or potentially moldy, although I didn't see any of that. It could have been the fertilizer or lack thereof, or the soil composition. I mean, there's a variety of things that could have occurred. So I'm very cautious now about the curing.
And blame you. I would be too, to preserve what you did harvest.
Yeah. So this year, what I'm going to do is the ones that did really well, I'll use the best bulb from that for seed again. And I'm going to order some fresh seed on some of the varieties that failed that I like. Chestnut red is one I really like. And I'm going to order some softneck. So that's okay. I mean, you know, sometimes you save seed and it just doesn't come the way that you think it's gonna, and that just happens. But basically, when you store it, whether it's braided or not, the hardneck, I cut that top part down a little bit more to where it's like you would see in a grocery store. Put it in a mesh bag. I get a cotton mesh bag. Yeah. Do not put it in like plastic Kroger bags or whatever. They will rot. So it's got to be stored like in a basket or a mesh bag. Still needs air.
It still needs that airflow, which makes sense. Now, before we go on, I do want to talk about the Scapes, or should I wait?
No, talk about it. Yeah.
I've kind of grown garlic, not as much as I did this year. So I've never been able to take advantage of the Scapes. I love Scapes. Like I've had them in other stuff, but this year I got to do my own Scapes, and they are, if you're not taking advantage of your Scapes.
I was not.
I should have taken your Scapes before.
I still have some in my fridge, in the crisper.
Well, then you need to do something with them. They're so good. Okay.
I did cook with one of them.
Okay, good. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm a little more obsessed than Sarah's like, I mean, they're good. So I diced them in inches, an inch long, and sauteed them. And they're like green beans.
Oh, yum. They're with a little bit of a garlic flavor on them.
Yeah, they're so good.
Sounds great.
I did try one raw because I was just curious. Sure. Very potent. Very potent. I would not recommend using them raw. I mean, I was like... But I was like, I need to know. So maybe diced really fine, it would be like good in a salsa or something like that.
Oh, that's a good idea.
To give it a bite. Also really good if you dice them small, saute them with butter, and then mix them with cream cheese and smear them inside an omelet. I mean, there are so many things you can do with Scapes, and they're just, the flavor is so delicate, and so they really are something to utilize.
I need to get up on it.
In any way you can. I love just sauteing shit. I saute kale and radishes. I love sauteing stuff. I was like, well, I bet I can just saute this.
Oh, that's so great. No, thank you for sharing that.
I probably had like 6 Scapes that I didn't take off, that I missed the boat on. I wish I hadn't. You really want to take them off when they get that full curl. Some of mine didn't get a full curl though.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, maybe they're going to curl some more, but then they went straight up. They went straight up in the air. I was like, well, then they're woody.
One of mine was a little bit woody when I tried it, but I'm going to see what we have left. We'll see today before you leave and see if there's any you want to save out of there.
It's supposed to say that if you do take off the Scapes, that helps improve your garlic growth.
Mm-hmm.
So
puts the energy back into the root, because the Scape is essentially the flower. It's like an allium bulb. Mm-hmm. It's the same exact thing. It's an allium family, and you know how alliums get all those flowers. We just let it go to flower. With the garlic, you don't want that to flower. You want to go ahead and take it off. It'll put energy back into the root. The good thing to talk about next is fertilizing, because when you first get your bed ready, a really good and nice compost base, and then you're going to go ahead and plant them. and plan on planting with a like a 555 fertilizer, organic. And then what I read, and I haven't really followed this myself in the past, I've been pretty lax on garlic because I feel like it's so easy. But after this crop failure or partial failure this year, I'm going to be a little bit more diligent because I give a lot of space over to it.
Yeah,
And I
you did.
really want a lot of garlic. I
Yeah.
don't want to buy garlic. And so I want to have a full crop. So in the early part of the spring, you want to have a nitrogen rich fertilizer, which would be blood meal. And then in the later part of the spring, you want to switch to like a phosphorus base, which would be like a bone meal. So the phosphorus helps with the root growth.
Which makes sense because the leaves are up from the nitrogen,
Right.
or at least the leaves are done growing.
Yeah.
And then the bulb starts to put on its size. So
Right.
that makes sense that that's when the
Yeah.
bone meal
So I
would
feel
come into play.
I feel really confident with just a little bit of effort, you know. And
Yeah.
honestly, I have found that you can pretty much garden with bone meal and blood meal throughout most of your garden for
Yeah.
vegetables and a lot of flowers. And there are vegan options too, which we are going to explore. I think kelp meal was something we just read about, maybe as an option for bone meal. Anyway, so now we've talked about harvesting, curing, keeping them, how to eat some of the scapes, which is amazing. What about how you plant them?
So planting them, I want to say I planted probably a bulb and a half of garlic in the fall. And it's insane little you can start with and then produce in your end result. So when you're planting, you're taking that bulb, you're breaking it apart, and you have your individual cloves, and that's what goes in the ground.
Yeah, and you don't even need to strip the paper off of the clove. In fact, you should leave it so it doesn't rot. And I usually dig a trench about 3 inches deep. Depends on the size of the clove. And then I cover it with about an inch or so of soil. I have a 10 by 5 bed and I plant them in the width of the bed, the 5 foot. So it'll go down the line. I had a lot of varieties because I used seed that I had saved from the year before. So essentially any bulb that you save and cure, that's garlic seed essentially.
Yeah.
So I used some of that. I mean, in a 5 foot row, you might plant like 8 cloves. They're usually going to be, I would say for bulb development, I plant them about 6 inches apart. I'm sure that you could probably plant them closer than that, but it does give them room. And then between rows, I'm probably about a foot.
Okay.
But I have done it closer together before. It's just, I like to give them enough room to get to like the size of my palm. So if you just think, hey, I'm trying to get a bulb to roughly the size of the inside of my palm, then it's going to need to have at least palm width plus a little bit on each side. And that's just kind of, and then with the depth of it, it's really like a flower bulb. If you were going to plant a tulip, usually, although I plant those bulbs more shallow than they say because they never come up, but I would say at least 1.5 times the height of that bulb, if not 2, is about right. Especially in the South where it's hot, I think you want to be cautious in planting it too shallow. Then I throw down dried leaves on top in the fall. So I put down a nice thick layer of leaves on it. And then in the spring, I'll take most of those leaves off and just leave a little lower base of that. So it just helps protect them over the winter and keep the weeds down.
Yeah, that's great. I want to say that I probably did my cloves 2 inches deep. I wonder if something that helped me. I basically had my beds covered from like November to February with the clear plastic stuff. I don't know if that made a difference at all.
They need to have cold.
I mean, they were cold in there.
But I don't know. I never, ever cover mine. I've never covered them. It's the one bed that I just don't ever worry about, never had to. They will grow a little bit in the fall. You get a little bit of leaf growth, but they just don't really need it. I mean, I don't know that it hurts it, but I don't know that it really helps it either.
And I didn't do it for them. I did it for all my kale.
I was going to say, says the woman who had a partial failure. But it's the first time that's ever happened. In all fairness, I've been doing it for a long time. And I would say if you are going to plant garlic, that raised beds are a great way to go because even though we're only planting them 2 or 3 inches deep, you need to have a good 12 inches of soil. because those roots are pretty numerous and they like loose soil. So you could do a bed on the ground. You could do a no-dig bed with cardboard, leaves, and mulch and soil, but just get it up to at least a foot.
See, that needs to be really thick, or else
Yeah.
you really need to fork the soil below.
For sure, and work in a lot of compost. I would stick with a raised bed. And one thing we did forget to mention is after you're done curing them and you're going to bag them, you can cut the roots off at that point. That's when you can go ahead and trim the roots off, but leave them to dry during the curing phase. But those roots will spread out and they need the drainage. They don't do well if they get super wet. So, and that's really it. I mean, that's growing garlic.
Yeah.
Plant it in the fall, harvest it in June. Yeah. I usually don't fertilize a ton, but I'll probably be a little more diligent this year. You know, it does need water, especially during bulb formation, which we had great rain this year. So just don't let it get too dried out, but you don't need to go out there and hand water all the time.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty hardy when it comes to its watering needs.
For sure. Unless you're having a drought right before bulb formation, you really shouldn't have to put it on drip or hand water. I mean, I can't live without it.
I know. And you know what will be interesting to see is the size difference between the bulbs that I took the scapes off, their bulb development, and the ones that I left them on.
Oh yeah, that'll be good to know.
And I'll see, is there really a size difference? You know, like, so that'll be interesting. And all of this applies to shallots too. We also did shallots.
Exactly. Shallots, same thing. Every year I gather up my shallots. We're going to plant them in the fall at the same time as garlic. There's two kinds that I grow. French shallot, which is gray and small, and then the red shallot. You heard me mention in another podcast episode that no one should have a shallot that's as big as some of the ones in the grocery store. And ironically, the ones that I gave Kate to grow, well, the red shallots, are massive like the ones in the grocery store. And mine are massive this year too.
They're just, I mean, they're like, a whole bundle is like larger than a softball.
Yeah.
I mean, they grow, I mean, they're pieces of them, but they are grocery store size.
Yeah. Shallots are really cool. They are more like, it's like how onions kind of, when they're growing, when you get to harvest them, they're halfway above ground. So they kind of bulb out of the ground. Whereas garlic is always under the ground. It should never be out of the ground. You shouldn't look at your garlic patch and see garlic coming up. But shallots, you do. Like, they're planted under the ground. You should be able
to see your garlic. I mean, a little bit. Mine started to emerge.
Did it? No, mine don't ever emerge.
Yeah. Well, I think because they were so big, some of them.
So the shallots, they do emerge. They're kind of like, you plant them more shallow, and same thing in rows, and just cover them up, and they kind of do the same thing. They have a lot thinner stalks. They grow almost like in, how do you explain it?
I know.
Really? It's kind of like they're attached around the bottom, but they kind of spread out like this. Because when you buy a shallot in the grocery store, you just see like two shallots together. Yeah. You don't see that they're like almost like in a clump. And then all the leaves are coming up.
It's like kind of an upside down octopus, if you will. And like the head is, and then they kind of come off. Yeah. They're little cuties.
They're cute.
Well, the shallots are, I use them more in an onion sense.
This is how I use shallots. Salad dressing, best salad dressing ever.
Yeah.
Vinegar, oil, shallot, salt and pepper, lettuce. I mean, we could do a whole thing on salad dressings, but even just shallots should be in almost every vinegar-based salad dressing you get. They're perfect for that.
They're such delicate. I mean, I'll just slice them and put them,
I mean, I use them in a lot. They're great with potatoes. They're more delicate than an onion.
Absolutely.
But you can still use them in soups, and even a sofrito base. It won't be quite as pungent, but it gives it a softer flavor. So, and the thing about shallots is I find they store really well. Like, I can get those to store easily for 9 months.
Yeah.
If not longer.
I would say longer, because
I've had shallots for a year.
That's great, and they're fine.
And what I do is after we harvest them, I lay them out, let them kind of cure, and then I bunch them up and hang them in my basement on this little line that I have across the top in little groups, and just go down there and grab them. So
I did not wash my shallots.
Good. Don't wash them.
So we'll see how they do.
Well, there we go. That's it for garlic and shallots today.
Garlics and shallots. So my.
Okay, well, I had enough of a garlic harvest that I can keep this crazy vampire gardener away from me. So we'll be okay. But all right, well, let's go get dirty.
All right, let's go grow, baby.
Thanks for listening to Fostering Blooms. If this episode inspired you, send it to a friend who's ready to ditch bland grocery store radishes and get spicy in the garden with us. We'd love it if you left us a 5-star review. That helps other people like you find our podcast. And don't forget to tag us on Instagram when your blooms show off. Until next time, let's go grow, baby.